from 14 companies such as Mizuho and Mitsubishi UFJ to accept roughly 150 billion yen of preferred stocks. Bolstering its capital base has been the biggest challenge in Zhao's rehabilitation. The airline is expected to use the proceeds to purchase fuel-efficient planes and boost its ability to cope with high fuel prices. Finally, a small fishing town in Japan is getting worldwide attention. That's because it's called Obama City. A town of just 30,000 people, the town name means small beach in Japanese. Not surprisingly, they are enthusiastically rooting for Barack Obama in the US presidential elections. They have pasted "I love Obama" posters around the town, although they are not known to be Democrats. They have been bombarded by foreign journalists from AP and Reuters and even Al Jazeera. That's it from Nikkei in Tokyo. Christine.
This is such a nice story, Moriyasu-san. Thank you very much for that. Ken Moriyasu, international correspondent from the Nikkei. While concerns about global credit crunch and the U.S. economy halted the advance of some Asian markets today this week, and it puts the age-old theory of decoupling back into sharp focus. Let's bring in Niku Harajchi, CEO of N1 Asset Management, for analysis. Niku, good to have you with us. First of all, we've got really strong trade data coming from Japan, strong growth numbers coming out from Japan yesterday, trade numbers from China, I beg your pardon. Also, we have Fukui sounding dovish today. Where do you stand on this decoupling issue? Is Asia going into this U.S. slowdown in a better position?
Well, first of all, it's great to be back, and thank you for having me here. And I think this has been the theme of 2007, especially 2008. Are we going to see a decoupling or not? And I believe there are two themes that you gotta think of. The first thing is globalization through trade border linkage, or you have to think about decoupling. From our point of view is that if you think of both, that's intellectually dishonest. And when we look at emerging Asia, this is the most export-dependent region in the world. Whereas last year, 43% of GDP figures from Asia were exports, where only 48% was consumer-related. Now, if you look at the US, where you take from the entire GDP, more than 70% is consumer-related. Now, the U.S. consumers last year spent around $9.5 trillion, whereas the Chinese consumers only spent around $1 trillion. And if you put India on top of that, they spend around $600 million. So this still shows that the U.S. consumers is 6 times as strong as what we're seeing in China and India. Now, do you actually believe that China and India or in Asia could decouple? We clearly do not think that.
Well, Niku, Brian Shackman here in the U.S., you know, interesting commentary, but you're pretty convinced the U.S. is headed toward a recession. We have conflicting numbers here in our economy. There are conflicting numbers globally. So why are you so confident the U.S. is in recession?
Well, it's very true that you say that. And yes, I mean, right now, if you look at it from a global perspective, it's a little bit of a mess. We think that the U.S. is heading towards a recession, or we think the chances are very, very big. And we think it's going to it's coming from the subprime crisis, it's going to come from the credit crisis. We think this could go out in 2 factors. First of all, we think that a lot of banks and the lenders, they're gonna be hit by the decline in property prices, which will actually then get them to negative equity on the balance sheets. That, in fact, is going to hurt the consumers. And we're going to see consumer spending really slow down in the U.S. We think this is going to hit the global markets.
Niku, it's Ross here. So I just want to pick up with something that one of our previous guests was saying. So he's looking at just the Chinese market. He said, look, this is a market that's on a P of 50, which is basically in the history of stock markets completely unsustainable. So the A-share market's going to crash. It's going to drag the H-share market with it, and then it may well spill over into other high-priced markets like India. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a good question, and also when you look at the PE ratios and you look at the valuations, I mean, the valuations compared to just a few months ago came down sustainable a lot. But so is the PE ratios or the valuations, are they good right now, or is it still too much? We don't think that the valuations right now, even though they're a lot lower than a few months ago, are good for the future, because the global economy and also the economy future outlook in China is different. So we think that even the Chinese economy, the Chinese stock market, is going to have increased volatility, and we don't see there's going to be a lot of potential gains this year.
Nico, Christine here again. You say hedge funds is where you should be putting your money right now. A bit of disclosure, because we know your outfit offers two types of hedge funds for investment. Why should anyone want to invest in hedge funds? And specifically, what type of hedge funds should investors go for?
I got to admit, this is my favorite question, and I really think that if you look today and compare it back to 10 years ago, the retail investors were not able to have such a great variety of investment opportunities. Today it's much easier for retail investors to diversify their portfolios. And I really clearly think that hedge funds, and when you ask me which investments, we would advise on fund of hedge funds. It's a great way for retail investors, and also institutional investors from that matter, to diversify their investments and get access to other markets that are uncorrelated to the equity markets.
All right. Nico, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much for being with us. Good talking to you as always. Nico Harajchi, CEO of N1 Asset Management.
Well, coming up on Worldwide Exchange, was SocGen aware of rogue trader Jerome Kerviel's activities long before it claimed to be? An interview with his